All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another state of the election, or campaigns, I guess. I uploaded one of these about 2 weeks ago. Figured I'd just check in on each race with some more recent polling. Today, actually, there was a large dump of YouGov/Economist polls that came out. You can see a bunch of them. A lot of favorability, general election and approval stuff. So we'll talk shortly about that. And then we'll check in with some states. And also, I want to go over some. No, thank you. I just want to go over some spending changes from the most recent election, the 2020 general election, to this one, and some key battleground states. Just to give us some insight as to who's raising what and who's spending what where. But so we'll start with some national polls. Actually, we'll start with the Economist first, just because I think these are pretty interesting. Some of them are, at least. Congress approval, of course. A ham sandwich would get a better approval. I mean, people like ham sandwiches. People do not like Congress. Yeah, minus 40, 41. This is just bad. Typical, nothing new there. Joe Biden approval, pretty much where it's been for a while now. Mid 40s isn't really that bad for a president's last couple months in office. Usually, those are some of the worst months for approval. Supreme Court approval. This one's interesting, just because I feel like there's been a lot of talk about Supreme Court recently, just because of Donald Trump being able to pick several Supreme Court justices and kind of packing the court now. Probably what will be for a long time. What seem to be Republican-leaning Supreme Court justices. Presidential election. This is with Stein and West, Jill Stein and Cornel West, and she is, and by she I mean Vice President Harris is +3 in both of them. So pretty much where her average is. Generic ballot. This is just Congress. Which would you rather have, Democrat or Republican majority? And as of late, we'll check that poll, the aggregate poll for that in a little bit. But this is, +2, +3, pretty much what it's been for a little while now. These are the U.S. Senate general election. I don't know anything about either of these races. Seems to be very close in Denver, though. And an active vote poll for governor of Missouri. Not close. Trump favorability, typical -10 or +10, unfavorable. Pretty much where he always is. J.D. Vance, this is before the vice presidential debate. That was last night. This is not so hot. I imagine these are all different states. I actually have not looked. Let's take a quick look. J.D. Vance or unfavorable opinions. Yeah. Not the most favorable or liked guy among the country. I mean, 34% favorability is just not good. At least that we'll contrast that to Walz's in a moment. Joe Biden, pretty much typical Joe Biden, minus at +7. I keep saying that. And then Kamala favorability, pretty much split, which is where it's been. And then to contrast the J.D. Vance, Tim Walz favorability. Tim Walz is, people like him by a significant margin. I mean, this is actually crazy to only be a 31% unfavorable. You don't see that in any of these polls, and very few people have that, and I think that says a lot. And to be even and +1, that's pretty good. So let's see where we are in the national poll. Yep, nothing's happened. I mean, plenty of polling has happened. We're being flooded with polls right now. But pretty much every one of them has Kamala at least +3, except for this Leaguer, the New York Post. Okay, but even that's probably, I don't know actually. Yeah. Let's see. This +6 with. Oh, Kennedy's in this one. Why is Kennedy in that one? That's weird. Is Kennedy in this one too? Yep, Kennedy in this one too. He's not gonna get the votes. I don't know. Harris Vance. Whoa, that's a weird poll. I'm not sure how that ended up here or how that affects it. Congress. Yeah, here are those economist polls we just saw. +2, +3, pretty much exactly what we expect. Kamala favorability compared to the last video I did a couple weeks ago about this. She's gained a point, which is pretty interesting. I'm shocked actually. She's now 47. That she's rearing on 50. I mean, it'll take a while, but she's rearing on 50, which is impressive if she can do that. I mean, she has in several polls, but we'll see when the election comes. And Trump, of course, the stickiest man in. It's an odd way to put it, but his polls stick and they don't move for all of eternity. Death, taxes, and Donald Trump polling at 40% favorability are inevitable, apparently. So let's check some of the closest swing states, pretty much. This is an insane race. Just look at this. +1, +1, +1, +1, +1. Then the next. That's the first 5 states are within a 1-point margin of each. Or I guess at that point a 2-point margin. But it's less actually. Yeah, so Donald Trump seems to be doing well along North Carolina. So let's start here because that's not what I was about to go into. But it's pretty static. You get a couple polls where Stein and West kind of eat into what it seems to be the Harris side of voters, which I would understand as they're typically more left-leaning. Yeah, +1, +3, +2, WAPO, QPAC with the +1, +2, looking pretty decent in North Carolina for Donald Trump, but it's unbelievably close that it's just, I wouldn't know how to call it. Pennsylvania, the most important state by far. Trump's polling has been really good here as of late, compared to when Morning Consult had her at +6. That's insane. That's not going to happen, but, and then to see this also is interesting, but Patriot polling, Trafalgar, they are, like I said, they're a well-known partisan pollster. This Atlas Intel, I'm not sure about, but +3 in Pennsylvania. Donald Trump will take that any day of the week. As you can see, he's tightened it up. It did almost look like it was gonna start to expand a little bit, but he has closed that gap right away. And this is interesting because hold on, I'm just gonna move this over here real quick. Get this off the screen. Just there's notes that I have. But yeah, because they are spending an outrageous amount of money in Pennsylvania right now. I believe it was, the Democrats have spent over $50 million in the first 20 days of September, whereas the Republicans spent $29 million over the same period. And that's more than twice the amount of money spent than it was in 2020. So it's pretty insane, the amount of money right now. I imagine ads, you can't turn around without seeing an ad in the state of Pennsylvania. So that makes sense considering it's the largest. It has the most electoral votes of the swing states, and it's also outrageously close. So, and then let's check Nevada. The Democrats, I believe, are also have increased their spending here by a large margin, but yeah, a 1-point difference. Harris polling well. These American Greatness polls +4, interesting. +1, who's here? West is West. Okay. And the Insider Van +1. So again, Nevada close. Georgia, a state that has now is getting an outrageous amount of spending. They spent, the Democrats, and just as point of reference, in 2020 spent only $2 million on campaigning and advertising in Georgia, whereas over the first 20 days of September, it was $24 million. So that's 12 times the amount in which they spent because of Georgia, seeming somewhat blue. But if you check the polls, it does not seem somewhat blue anymore. As of recent, this Insider Advantage has it even. Actually, all these evens, as like I pretty much said in the last video, this Quinnipiac poll kind of makes me think otherwise. But than what I recently said. But this is probably going to be a nail biter, close to 50-50 at some point, I imagine, like 49-49-40. This is what I expect on election night. Okay. Georgia, Arizona, another state where Donald Trump is doing well in relative to the other states. He's, polling solidly well here. These morning consult polls, again, one of the better polling groups. Emerson College also, they're really good pollsters. Having him +4 is a great poll for him. Arizona, I believe the spending has decreased. We'll check that in a moment. Wisconsin, another state where it's pretty much been static. It closed up once Kennedy dropped out. It's getting a little closer as we approach Election Day, as probably most of these polls will. But these New York, Siena, they probably, like I said, the gold standard for polling across the country has him +2, +2, +3. And Trafalgar has a +1, but like I said, partisan pollster that typically leans right. When they course correct right. They don't lean right. That's not a good way to put it. I don't know how this new system works here. It's really annoying. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Michigan. Thank you. And the safest state, it appears, for Democrats, Michigan. New York Times has it +3. Interesting. But also +1. I wonder what's happening here. Stein, when Stein's not in it, she wins. She does better. Interesting. Yeah. Those are the outliers, relatively speaking. But other than that, but they're not really outliers in my mind because they're a great pollster. But then Trafalgar again. Pretty much a 2-point game here. If this holds, again, I think it will probably. I think she'll win the state of Michigan, which she will need. And then Florida, we're not even going to check Florida. Next thing I wanted to look at was this map real quick. Thanks to NBC News. Appreciate things like this because we get to see some pretty intense changes in the ad share for each state. So let's just check this out. One that I thought was interesting, Nevada is a 329% change or increase since 2020. That one makes sense, but because it's somewhat bigger than Arizona, I believe. But Georgia, another one that we saw, I mentioned earlier, that Republicans or Democrats had been ramped it up significantly, by orders of magnitude. North Carolina, I honestly would have expected it to be more this time around, just because of how close it is. Like we saw, it's literally the. Okay, not sure what. North Carolina, the closest state right now. I would have expected it to have increased by a large margin. Virginia, don't care. Pennsylvania, this is, I mean, of course, they already spent an absurd amount of money there last year, so to do 64% more is actually insane. Ohio, no one cares. Michigan and Wisconsin, you see Michigan a much larger increase. Wisconsin, not so much. What's interesting about this map is, like, I think Minnesota, yeah, no one cares. Texas, no one cares. Florida, no one cares. Like, there's really not much else. And this is interesting because New Hampshire is like +10 for Vice President Harris right now, and you're still spending a lot of money there. I'm not sure who is or what is, but they are. And yeah, it's interesting. Just all this money. Most of it's on airwaves and ads time. And just a little interesting note. I've been reading this in several articles now. Is that Donald Trump has given up on trying to win voters over, and he's just trying to run negative ads of Kamala Harris, whereas Harris is doing a mix of both because she's still trying to sell herself to the people, whereas everybody knows who Donald Trump is. Yeah, that's basically it for this video, and I appreciate everyone for watching, and have a nice day.